Obsession. I'm Carl Bethke.
Sean Devitt.
Mike Stather here.
Right on. We're going to talk today. The question is, how do you guys set up entrance and exit routes? And do you use perpendicular approaches to your tree stands? So, Sean, you want to start this one out?
Well, where I set up my tree stands.
How about exit and enter routes first?
Well, that is that can be tricky.
Yeah?
Because you might be limited to entrance and exit.
Yeah.
How
How do you decide it, though?
do I decide it? Generally, depending on what time of day it is, which way I'm going to go in,
Right.
where I'm going to hunt. On my properties, I don't have a lot of choices. But so that's where really the particular stand you're going to hunt. Whether it's an easy 50-yard walk in because the wind's right for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wind probably has to do with almost 90% of the decisions of where I'm going to hunt.
100%.
Yeah, right.
Usually.
Yeah.
I think.
So I mean, till you can control it. If you know you can get to a stand, but you're going to be walking through wind that you wouldn't want, but when you get to that stand, the wind's good for it. I mean, you might have to be aggressive and make that decision. Setting up my stands, typically, I'm trying to find where the deer are moving first.
Mm-hmm.
And set up a stand that's going to be set up for what usual fall wind conditions are.
So basically, and I think we'll all talk about this quick, that's a very good point. Predominant wind direction is southern Wisconsin is northwest in the fall, correct?
Correct.
But documented over the last 2 years, we've had a lot of northeast winds.
Correct.
And eastern west and southeastern winds. So it's been a little bit different, been kind of strange. Matter of fact, I think we had over 30 days that had an east wind this year that I wrote down. That being said, everybody, do you set your stands for a predominant northwest direction?
Generally, but you do have stands set up for that
I know you don't.
east wind.
That's why I'm asking him first.
Okay.
Where I shot Wolverine a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
that was a southeast wind.
Yeah. Yep.
And that stand is on a very narrow pinch point.
Yep.
Where you're sitting come off of a small food plot. It's less than 80 yards from my house. So, I mean, I can get in and out of it. The deer generally are coming from the north. So even on that southeast wind, it's blowing out into the field.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sit that. You can also sit it on a northwest wind. So it's kind of set up for just about every wind direction, depending on what time of year it is, though, and what the deer are doing in that particular location at that time of year.
Right. So what you're saying is location.
Yeah, and you
And,
really got to
watch
assess
the
the
wind.
deer herd, too, and how they move through those locations before you set up your stands to them.
Okay. So that's how Sean sets up a couple of at his place. What do you do, Mike?
First thing I like to do is I like to determine morning stand, afternoon stand.
100%.
That's the biggest thing I like to do first. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not 100% going to always be that way, but predominantly you're going to figure out morning travel,
Yeah.
afternoon travel.
Yep. Except during the rut.
Yeah, right, except during a rut. I like to have stands for every wind.
Yeah.
So that I can get in somewhere.
If
Because I feel that you can learn something somewhere.
100%.
Maybe it might be a stand you don't see nothing out of close to you, but you might see something, down 100 yards from you with your binos or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Wind direction is always goofy. Obviously, you have to have the right wind to get in any stand, which goes back to your access.
Mm-hmm.
There's always terrain change
Yeah.
and stuff like that you have to take into
Train change,
Yeah.
thermals
Yep.
come into account.
Well, what about this question? So this is kind of for all three of us too. What do you guys think about perpendicular entrance? Meaning, basically, you never want to parallel a deer trail when you're entering your tree stands. Do you think that is is that a big deal? I'll go first on this one. To me, is that a big deal? Honestly, I'd say half or three-quarters. I'd say three-quarters of my stands are perpendicular entrance, but the rest of them actually do parallel a deer trail. Now, do the deer walk down the trail I'm coming in on? No.
Right.
But I'm not a guy that says, hey, let's walk in on a deer trail and get in a tree stand that's 10, 15 yards off the tree stand either. But we do have some of that, you know. And I will tell you this, too. Some of the mowed trails that I've got on my property,
They're
that
gonna use them.
yeah, they use them. That picture right there on that computer right there, that's one of the mowed trails, and that's one of the biggest deer on my property.
Well, and that's what I have on my bigger property. I mean, there was really one main trail that kind of looped around the entire property.
Mm-hmm.
Went in there with a forestry mower, just knocked trails out. I mean, it's thicker. Like I said, they logged it about 6 years ago, so it's just underbrush and as thick as can be. Well, they don't want to walk through that as much as we don't.
Yeah.
They'll hide in it. They love it during gun season, and when they need a place to hide.
Oh, yeah.
But all those spots that I made new trails, set cameras on, those deer were using them more
Yeah.
and more as the season went on, where that's again next year or
But
coming
that's-
into this season.
You know what? That's something that people should pay close attention to too. When we say that, I'll be honest. Deer use my mowed trails all the time.
Yeah.
They use Mike's trails. They use Sean's trail. We all know that. And yeah, we'll walk in on them sometimes or whatever, but not all the time. And if I do, if you see me walking on a trail, 9 times out of 10, I'm not walking down the center of that trail.
Right.
I'm on one side or the other.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys. I know Mike does, and I'm pretty sure you do too. But we spray our boots down
Oh yeah.
with spray, and it's not going to cover your scent 100,000%, 100%, whatever.
It's not bulletproof,
No.
but it's something.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, I will be wearing rubber boots, especially early season. I wear rubber
Yeah.
boots. The only time I go into the other boot is as it gets colder because I don't have any really good rubber boots.
I never don't wear rubber boots. I'm a boot whore.
Yeah, you are.
I have a lot of boots.
You're like a woman.
I am with boots.
With
I'm telling
boots.
you, I got a lot of them. But I'm a huge believer in rubber boots, and I'll walk down the trails they come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to. I'm not gonna skip and jump down the whole thing, you
Right.
know. But if
No.
I got to go down it a little bit and cross it, I'll do it
Oh yeah.
to get to something, you know.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, I think we all do that too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, a lot of guys like we're out on our properties working them.
yeah.
And the deer know that you're out there working on them, but you're not bothering them. It's one thing when you're getting in a stand and sitting in it instead of just walking down the trail, and they might pick up a little bit of scent. You said you try to cover it with spray, rubber boots, do the best you can. It's more important when you're sitting in that stand that they don't know you're in that stand.
No, that's yeah.
Because
That's,
you're going to go through your property 100 times during the preseason, and then once the season starts too. They know that, they smell that, but when you're in the stand is more important. So
well, how many times have we watched deer track us?
exactly.
You know.
So walking in, and then you climb right into that stand. Generally, you want to try to, like you said, stay on the edges, cover your scent as much as possible, because they're just going to smell you walk right to that stand,
Yeah.
and they're going to smell you in that.
Okay,
No matter
so-
what you do.
Do we think that perpendicular entrance into your tree stand from deer trails is important? Me? No.
No,
I don't think so
I don't
either.
think
I think
so
it
either.
goes with how you get in your stand.
Yeah, and I mean, you got, again, I feel like with everything, when it comes down to it, is you got to assess your own property. You have to assess your own herd. It takes years of studying what the deer are doing on your property and what they get used to and what they're comfortable with,
Oh,
too. I mean, my property at home, up until like mid-August, September, if my wife and kid want to walk the dogs on the trails, fine.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't deter the deer from staying and coming there during
Well,
this time of year.
The big thing about that anyway, number one, I mean, we talked about this, and Mike and I have already touched on it in podcasts already. I don't want that big deer laying on my property
No,
during summer.
nope.
I don't want him there, and I want them to think of my property as their fall range.
I mean, every shooter buck I had during the fall came through the property once or twice this summer.
Yeah.
And then showed up October, mid-October, or later. Maybe, a little bit in September, but right now, they're everywhere out there.
Yeah, you
There's
got a lot of
food.
deer out there.
There's food. It's quiet. They're left alone. And they're not there in the summer, and you're sitting going, oh, I'm not getting pictures and this and that. But, over the last how many years, we've talked about this numerous times that it doesn't matter if they're there in the summer.
Right.
Well,
you don't want them there in the summer. You
Right.
want a certain amount of does on your property.
Sure.
They'll stay anyway.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can kick them around a little bit in the summer, especially when
Well,
you're
they're-
working and doing things and running the mower through and whatever. They get used to that.
They're
hear it.
far more tolerant. They're not going to get up and
Yeah,
leave.
and I mean, we all live, and all our properties are in farm country.
Yeah.
They hear equipment, they're used to it.
Yeah, well, going back to the access to the stands, I think you got to really do your homework.
Yeah.
You can figure out how you get them. Use your cameras.
Mhm.
Use them early. Use them in the summer when you
Yep.
go in and out and check them and see if they're going there in the morning or night. I mean, I know I have stands, and Carl, you have stands. Like, I could take either one of you out to my property and be like, go here, and I know you're going to get in it, and I
Mhm.
know you're not going to bump anything,
Yeah.
and you'll be good.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, get out of there by 9:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need
Right.
to be in there anymore after that, because
Yep.
then it's going to, your wind's going to change, which things you got to learn too.
Yeah. Again, it's
Again,
assessing
learning your property.
learning
Yeah.
your property over the years. And, it's going to take 1,000 mistakes to do that. And you can't be afraid to make those mistakes. You got to be in it for the long haul. I think that's a big thing, too, is people, they put all this work into 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. And it's just not happening. It's just not happening.
Property costs way too much money to only think that you're gonna, or start to think after 3 years, if you don't shoot the size of the deer you want or something like that.
I mean,
you have to sell it.
yeah. I mean,
'Cause it's not cheap.
my property at home, the first year, there wasn't a whole lot out there.
Dude, you didn't shoot a big deer on your property till what, 3 years in?
Till
4 years in?
Yeah, 4 years in. 4 years in.
You shot
I shot-
Wolverine 5 years in?
He was the 4th year.
4th year.
Yeah, and I mean, I had shot one buck prior to that. That was about 130 inches. He was just a nice buck, and he was standing in front of me for like 5 minutes. I could not.
Right.
And other than that, I didn't. The first year, there were randoms that would go through there,
Yeah.
but only during the night. Well, I was doing, I was going in and checking cameras, and I didn't know how the deer moved on that property. As time went on, we started setting up stands differently that may be off a deer trail or may be off an area, but that area allows you to get into it, quietly, scent free,
Yeah.
undetected, without educating them. And now that the years have gone on with the food and just how I've gone about accessing that property over the years and staying out of it at certain times, when, at the beginning it was, gung ho, I want to get in there, I want to hunt all the time, and I was just, I was educating everything, and there wasn't anything around.
So basically, I think our thoughts are perpendicular entrance to the tree stand doesn't matter, but picking your entrance routes and exit routes and knowing what time of day you can hunt certain stands is probably the most important part. Like Mike was talking about, there's morning stands, there's evening stands, and then getting to that particular stand on whatever wind direction you're having, or certain stands you can't hunt on certain wind directions, is the most important part.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, agreed.
I always think too, I know you do, Carl, a lot. I'm sure Sean does, but I think you always got to have a backup stand in your head
Oh yeah.
every
Yeah.
time you go out, because we know it for sure. I know that one of the nights I hunted your property, a couple different stands to sit in. I walked right to the base of the one tree because you saw me on the camera many
yeah.
times looking at the tree, staring around, and I walked away
Yeah.
and went to a different one. And that night, one of the giant deer on Carl's property was underneath that other stand, but I know that if I would have been in there, he would not have came out in there.
Yeah.
No, he'd
Not
have
that I
got
shot him, but
he'd have
I
gotten
would have
educated.
spooked him out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean,
So-
I think we've all done that. I mean, there's a lot of times I'm walking in, and I know I have a couple different options, and until I get there, especially when you're, at the bottom of a ridge,
Yeah.
or, you're maybe you got one or two off of a food plot, and again, you maybe want to get and be like, oh God, the wind's really kicking this way. I'll go sit in that other one.
Yeah.
You know, and again, sometimes it backfires, sometimes it doesn't.
You
But
gotta
at least
play
you're
your
not
odds.
educating the deer because
gotta
that's
play
the
your
worst thing
That's-
you can do.
It's an
That's
odds
the
game.
best. That's it. That's 100% right. It's an odds game.
Yeah.
Hunting whitetails is an odds game. You have to assess your percentages on that sit in that spot, and at that point, you either decide, okay, I got a 70-80% sit here with me being able to shoot a buck I want to shoot, or I got a 50-50. If you got a 50-50, just don't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go back
I'm not
to
doing
the
that.
house.
Yeah, I gotta think it's
You need
either
it.
70
You need it
to
way up there.
70 to well, even on a day I think I can't get winded or anything like that, entrance wise, that's a 90% sit for me. I'll go in there and sit there and maybe not see a damn deer.
Yeah, and I think
You know?
that's a huge mistake that a lot of people make. They just commit to certain days, and sometimes that's all that life allows you to do. And well, I'm going to sit that stand because that buck's been there, and I only got this
I
day
don't care
to go.
if he's there or not. If I
Exactly.
can't get in there and not teach him something,
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
better to just sit that one out.
I mean, how?
or go someplace else.
Yeah,
Yeah, or
that's
go
why,
somewhere
like
else.
we said, backup stands. Know your
Yeah.
mornings and nights.
And I did that this
You
year.
know.
I got in a stand, and the day before I shot my buck, and I'm sitting in it, and I'm like, God, the wind really just changed. But it was also, it was early enough. It was about 2:45, 3 o'clock, and I got down and moved to another stand, which you go back and forth in your head. This is the worst thing I can do, but it turned out to be the best thing I
You
can
think
do.
that every time you're in a stand.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I shouldn't be here. I should be in that.
Yeah,
other
I should
one.
be in that other one. I should be
You
in
always
that
think
other
that.
one.
That's the problem with having too many.
You got to commit. Yeah.
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 And just do it, but it's. Everybody's gotten down and moved.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've done it.
I
You know,
mean,
and
yeah.
Watch your weather though too. I think a lot of people don't watch their weather. You like,
Exactly.
maybe I got a north wind.
Yeah.
That's great, but in 2 hours from now,
You
you
might
might
not.
not.
Oh yeah.
And then what the hell are you doing there?
Well,
Yeah.
here's the other thing. I'm gonna tell you guys right now. I don't ever think there's. It's very seldom I know of a tree stand. I think what I would consider as an all-day sit. You have a
There,
morning stand and you have an
100%.
evening
Yeah,
stand.
we've always moved on those all dayers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You might have a spot where, you can sit there all day.
Hang and
but-
bang, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta.
But
I'll be honest about
but
the
where
all-day
we
sit
hunt-
thing. It's not gonna be very.
where we're hunting,
very
it's
productive.
elevation too. So again, with thermals and everything else, it's changing.
Yeah, but I think your percentages change. Even those days you think are an all-day sit, even during the rut, the guys talk about midday movement and all that. And that's 100%
It
true.
does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% true on midday movement. But most of the guys that I know that shoot deer on midday movement hunt in the morning someplace else.
Yeah.
They move at 11 a.m.,
Yeah.
10:30, 11
100%.
a.m., and then they're in that midday movement until probably 2:30,
Yep.
3, and then they'll move again to an evening move.
The all day
Yeah.
sits I've ever done, I've done quite a few. I'm sure all of us have, but
Yeah.
I've always moved.
Oh yeah.
Always moved. And I've watched deer in
100%.
bed. And I'm like, I need to get out of this stand. And I've
Yeah.
moved them, when they've been in their beds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
One time I got around on one, killed him.
Yeah.
Other times I didn't,
Yeah.
or I got down where I thought he might go later. you
Yeah.
know, But it was better than ruining it, sitting
Yeah.
in the same spot.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I think weather, like you said, weather and wind are the biggest factors to that, and they change throughout the day, especially in this part of the state.
Yep.
That's one thing you can count on, is that the weather and the wind is going to change daily when you're hunting, and you really need to think about where you're going
yeah,
to hunt.
count on never counting on the wind.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think we'll leave it probably at that. Count on never
Never
counting on the wind,
winds.
number one. But as for entrance and exit routes for us, we're not huge proponents of perpendicular entrance. We don't really think that it's any that. I understand the concept,
Yeah.
but if you've got entrance and exits that parallel deer movement, you should be in your stand before the deer are moving anyway.
Right.
Number one. Number two, if they're not walking on the trail, even if they are walking on the trail that you came in on, it's been very seldom that I've watched deer deter and turn, even mature bucks,
Yeah.
because I don't leave enough scent for that to happen.
Don't sit there and touch everything when you're going in and out. I see this. How many times do you see this on TV?
Yeah.
You watch guys going up and they're grabbing a stick or grabbing a tree that's got a rub on it. I ain't touching that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, I see it. I'm getting away from it.
Right?
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
walk around it. Here's
Yeah.
another thing too. Don't. I'm just throwing this out. Anybody can use scent or whatever they want. I am not a scent guy. I spend way too much time trying to be scent free to spray all kinds of deer piss and
Spray it up.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I don't even do. I don't. No,
No.
hey, back in the day.
Back
Back in the day,
We all did.
drips,
We
tried
all
it a
sorts
lot.
of gimmicks.
I know
and
Carl and I did a ton.
Oh,
We had
yeah.
all kinds of
Tink
shit out there.
69.
What's this? Let's put it out there.
Yeah.
I'll drip that out there.
Yep, hang
this
it right
wick up
above,
and,
right above you.
you know,
You know.
drag one in on my foot.
There's a video, and I'll try and find the footage. I'll show you guys this. There's a video of Mike and I moving stands, putting a decoy out in this field because we seen this big 8-pointer come in there the night before, and Mike taking a full bottle of Tink 69 and dripping it all around the backside of this deer and the target, the 3D decoy we were
3D
using.
Yeah.
decoy.
Yeah, and then we had 2 stands separated, set up in the tree, and Mike killed that night. We called it a buck right out of there. Mike shot this nice 8-pointer out of that, but I'm not going to say he came to the scent.
No.
He's probably like, what the hell is going on out there?
Yeah. Why is that deer just standing there? Is that even?
It's an awfully skinny deer.
But that worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not
don't count on it.
Well, I'm not a drag rag guy.
Me neither.
I'll be honest. Back in the day when I first started
Sure.
hunting, I tried it, and I had one deer come in, and I shot him, but it's not something I would
No.
recommend doing. So
I would done with the
I
the
think
deer sense in the
I
tree.
think with this part of it, you gotta. I think the problem with it is people don't know how to use it properly or use too much, and I include us.
well,
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know, and I've done this for a long
mean-
time. You guys, I don't know how much to use or what to use when. And
the other side of if you're hanging something in the tree, your wind. So you've got a scent hanging in the tree off to your right or whatever, and then you're sitting in the tree. Just because that scent, your scent.
I think we're going to leave this for another podcast before we get carried away here. But scent-wise, we're going to say we don't use it too much.
No.
And we can touch on that in another podcast. But as for the entrance and exit routes, we don't believe in the perpendicular stuff. You guys got to figure your land out. We're telling you that. I mean, we'll show you on our stuff why we enter
Takes
and
time.
exit certain things. But we're probably going to leave that the way it is here. Appreciate you guys listening to the Obsession again. This one was entrance and exit routes and what we thought about it and how we do it. You guys be sure to check out the stuff we did. We did some land layouts over the summer, and we'll show you guys, if you check them out, last year's The Obsession, Central Wisconsin land layouts. And we got a bunch of different properties we did there. You guys can check out some of the things we did there. And we'll be showing you what we're doing again this year. So be sure to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Be able to listen to us on Spotify here at The Obsession shortly. We'll be putting all the podcasts out on Spotify. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. Remember, all the shows air at 7 a.m. on Saturdays. We'll talk to you next week.
keep sending your questions in. Thanks.